This is Greg Trout, and this is my presentation number 2 for BLS 300. Today I'm going to speak on persuasion and how important it is to recognize when we are being persuaded. I think we can all agree on the importance of electing a particular person to a position in government. However, we are often overwhelmed by a campaign's attempt to persuade us that we're left not really knowing that particular candidate, who they are, or what they stand for. Over the past few units, we have learned quite a few different concepts in persuasion. In my presentation today, I'll take some of those concepts and show how they can be used in a campaign to persuade a voter to form a particular attachment to a particular candidate. If the main message of a campaign is you should vote for me, then what are some ways to convey that message? You may have noticed in previous major elections how many times you saw a candidate on TV. Mere exposure theory states that our reaction to a stimulus grows positively in proportion to the repeated exposure to that stimulus. This is why as elections grow nearer, you tend to see a candidate more and more often. There's a fine line, though, between exposure and overexposure, so a campaign has to try and find a happy balance. A good campaign should also know its audience. While the audience may be vast, a campaign should try to figure out that audience and how to play to it. Social judgment theory states that we each have an anchor or reference point we use on particular judgment issues, like social issues. From that reference point, we have a latitude of acceptance and rejection. When speaking on a particular social issue, a campaign will have to try and figure out the audience's anchor point and how much latitude there is so as to limit the amount with whom that latitude is crossed. Dr. Robert Cialdini wrote about 7 principles of which we are psychologically driven to comply with the pressure of others. A good candidate should be knowledgeable on these tactics and how to use them to their benefit. For instance, authority. We all know that we have a tendency to listen more toward authority figures and take that which they have to say as being more important and having a greater impact than that of non-authority figures. A good candidate will play up their authority by doing things like dressing professionally. Along the same line is liking. We tend to be more easily persuaded by those we like. The candidate should try to act and appear as close to its audience as possible to develop a commonality and therefore be more easily liked by their audience. Another tactic of which Cialdini spoke of is scarcity. We tend to want more that which we feel we are losing or have the possibility of losing. A candidate will be able to bring up social issues like, say, healthcare, and speak about how our accessibility to healthcare at a reasonable cost is becoming more and more scarce. They will then be able to use the fear of loss to motivate and persuade the user to act now by voting for them. In conclusion, I believe that a political campaign is one big persuasion. The goal is to persuade the audience to vote for that person. We have read about numerous ways to effectively persuade others, and I've touched on only a few in this presentation. However, I do believe that we have the power as reasonable and intelligent individuals to stop and really look at the message or persuasion attempt that's being put before us and rationalize that message to make the most appropriate decision for us.